am a researcher and a strategist. I've always been a researcher. A lot of people talk about how they fall into research. It's always been my dream job. Kind of infinitely curious about people and culture, and I've been fortunate enough to be able to do it always. So, and I'll tell you a little bit about how I do that, and crowd DNA as we go through the talk today. Yeah, lockdown has been interesting in lots of ways. I mean, anecdotally, I'm somebody who's never ever had indoor plants in my life. It's been a bit of a joke that I can't look after plants. I just kill them. But actually, there's this incredible longing for green, for nature, and I've now got indoor plants, and I've been looking after them. We're getting on quite well. So along with thousands and thousands of other people, I've been growing things. And I think another thing that I've learned during this lockdown is whatever idea enters my mind, other people are doing exactly the same. It's usually kind of not felt so kind of connected, like you kind of have this mind where everybody's longing for very similar things.
That's very interesting. So does it kind of, like in the cultural shifts that you have been seeing over this past few months, does it seem like we kind of becoming a little bit more homogenized, or there are some other ones that seem to kind of make more sense than that?
Yeah, it's very interesting. But of course, there's lots. We've also, lockdown has also been shining a light on inequality and how we're experiencing lockdown differently because of our socioeconomic circumstances. So it's not, it's very different to be locked in a beautiful house with multiple rooms and a garden compared to a tiny little flat with multiple generations. But I guess that there are certain elements of, feeling connected to others or wanting to connect with nature, which we've seen all over the world. And, just beautiful, images that participants have shared from all over the world, kind of growing things on their balconies, growing things inside. And it's been quite incredible to see so many people all over the world having similar longings.
Yeah, that's certainly something that I have been experiencing, and I definitely gave much more love to my garden, and but was also able to use it more. So I get it. And yeah, usually I had some plants and they fairly survive, but certainly got better than that. Any other kind of big cultural shifts that you have been seeing that you think are important, especially for brand leaders to consider?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much, but I think, one important thing to realize if we are talking about cultural shifts as a result of the pandemic is that a lot of the trends or shifts were already in motion. So they've been accelerated or changed course slightly, but this is, it's something that's happened, but there's still, needs and motivations that were there before, and they kind of their manifestation has changed kind of slightly. But I think, obviously, if we go kind of to the heart of the matter around health, I think we can see health, it's been, really, really important over the past few years. We talked a lot about mental health, we talked about self-care, and I think something interesting around health that's been happening and kind of moving is around more a sense of kind of communal health, or staying healthy for the people around you. So less kind of individualistic interpretation of health. Also preventative health, and really kind of focusing on how you're going to stay healthy for longer periods of time, not thinking less about the now when it comes to your health. So that's a kind of, obviously, relating to the pandemic, and how we feel about health. It's really kind of gone to those places where we think a lot about health.
So if we as customers and generally as people are looking a little bit more long term into ourselves, but also more kind of having community focus, do you believe that that also therefore transfers naturally to what we want from brands to kind of look more long term and more communally?
I think so. I think so. I think it's kind of, brand that can support that kind of health journey and show proof points around how we can, stay healthy for longer. But, even when it comes to fitness, what kind of fitness and exercises will help me stay healthy for longer, what kind of food properties and ingredients. I mean, both kind of, and we see a lot actually, in China, people returning to Chinese medicine and really kind of, again, trusting that discipline that's been there for thousands of years, and kind of wanting to learn more to be able to kind of understand what can help them stay healthy for longer.
That's
so
amazing.
I think that's interesting. So kind of more communal care and being healthy for others, but also kind of how can I stay healthy for longer?
Yeah, I'm certainly looking forward to the world where we kind of look much more longer term and much more communally at everything, not just maybe our health, but absolutely everything, including business, because we have been certainly, living in a world where everything is now short-term thinking, where can I get my bonus, as opposed to actually, what's the kind of wider impact, and how I can kind of plan for a longer term, more sustainable success. So that kind of trend I definitely like. So this is something up my street, that's for sure. So now, talking a little bit more specifically about safety, obviously this is something that we have been experiencing, the need for that has been intensified considerably, but not just our physical and, and kind of a safety in terms of not getting the virus, but almost like reframing what safety really means to us. But that has been there forever. So let's look at a little bit of the sort of pre-pandemic. What were some of those cultural codes, those representations really of safety pre-pandemic? And then we're gonna start later on look at how that sort of started changing.
Yeah. I mean, super interesting to look back before the pandemic. And I think, there's a few things. So one is that, safety in the West is not particularly present, actually. So safety not being present in our everyday lives. And even to, you look at kind of cleaning products or beauty products, the ingredients or descriptions not actually talking about safety or their capabilities of keeping us safe. Looking at EcoVer, for example, it's not actually talking about killing bacteria. So actually, a kind of a move away from a focus on safety. So safety is not very present. But then I also think, we kind of need to think about, what are we being kept safe from? And sort of, there are a few things going on. So one of it is, the kind of the enemy, the big, big threat in public discourse is around kind of terrorism, and keeping us safe from sort of events that we can't control, and actually their safety being quite aggressive. So it's kind of, it's weapons, it's muscles, it's borders, it's barriers. So then sort of the quite big signals around safety being sort of quite aggressive. But then actually another kind of safety element is keeping us safe from ourselves. So keeping ourselves from our own reckless behavior, like running with scissors, or kind of, I don't know, falling down the stairs.
Experience with children, yes.
So like actually kind of, keeping us safe from our own behavior rather than other people or, kind of other substances. And I think, so who can keep us safe? And, who do we trust? And safety has also been big brands. Like if you think about food safety, for example, which is not such a big issue in the West, but certainly a huge issue in Asia, in China, lots and lots of scares around food safety, and there putting a trust in big brands, feeling like their processes, the way they do things, we can is safe. And that then poses an interesting shift when we look at pandemic and post-pandemic behavior. So those are some things that I can see in terms of safety that was going on as we kind of came to this, before we enter the pandemic safety concerns.
Mm-hmm. And if we think about because you mentioned quite a lot of this very sort of bigger sort of macro meanings, but if we start thinking almost like, okay, so how brands have normally been able to represent them, introduce safety, or kind of create designs or maybe language that in some form or another communicated safety, even if they maybe weren't kind of big brands, which then automatically kind of turn on the trust, which while we were discussing, I think it's changing slightly right now, but you will tell us later. But what was kind of the usual kind of signals that brands could use to almost enhance the sense of safety with their products, with their brand, with their experience, or anything else that that they have been doing?
Yeah, so I mean, typically, if it's poison, there's a skull, something really kind of deadly. It's it's red, it's yellow. It's quite kind of using codes from nature and signaling danger.
So kind of creating fear, basically, in
creating
a sense.
Fear. Yeah, and there's only so much of that you can take before you kind of you have to switch
you
off.
Go slightly off.
But then I also think safety can also be sort of clinical or scientific. So the blue and the white, the kind of the medical safety. Then also, I think this is really important, actually, thinking about kind of post-pandemic, but reviews and ratings. So kind of food hygiene standards, for example, like what can we learn from that sort of grading system?
But do we then trust other people in their reviews to tell us that something is actually safe? Does it still stay, or do we want some external objective organization, for example, or perhaps has that kind of moved with the pandemic?
Yeah, I think that, that's actually a really kind of interesting area where, to a certain extent we have turned a lot to reviews in terms of, is this safe for my family? Is this restaurant, is it, of high quality? Is this destination? We have sort of put trust in others, but I think, what we're seeing now, and we'll talk more about it, is this need to combine perhaps, there needs to be some sort of proof point around scientific or a body kind of evaluating, this is actually safe, but you don't want to lose that sort of human touch or experience either.
Yeah, I'm certainly kind of, guilty at the moment when I was looking at booking some hotels for weekends away. And a lot of them have, AA COVID-19 standards. It's like, obviously accredited by them and things like that. And if you, for example, look at booking.com, the first thing that's under the name of the hotel is cleanliness. All of that kind of comes up. And as much as you kind of, can be conscious and aware, you still are looking at that regardless. And you feel kind of a little bit of a relief.
Relief.
See those little things.
Yeah, and when you're looking at, if you look at hand sanitizer, it's like, what's the alcohol percentage? Where is it? It doesn't matter around the other, you need to know that as well. And then the other things are important, but you need the evidence.
But is there perhaps a little bit too much of that kind of cleanliness and things like that? The reason why I'm saying is I went shopping yesterday on Regent Street with my mom, spoiling my mom. I'm like, we need to do that
No.
sometimes. And literally every single store you walk into, they ask you to kind of use the sanitizer as soon as you walk into. And like, I can do it 3 times. By the third time, it was like, nope.
I've done it.
Like, my hands are going to go crazy, you know. I eventually ended up having some allergy out of some of them. It's like, you know, so is there a threshold where we say, no, we don't want any more cleanliness and safety and everything like that, and let's go nuts?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. One of the things that I've kind of when we were when you put over questions to me, Kate, around, you know, what is safety during corona post the pandemic, and I think that you know, safety needs to code pleasure as well. But I think, and it's sort of, you know, going into a safe space where you feel safe that there isn't a threat of the virus is, you know, that you can relax. That's the ultimate form of kind of premium and luxury. And you know, we can't not have pleasure in our lives. There's, you know, one of the reasons why people feel so incredibly tired, you know, when we speak to people, you know, they just feel their cognitive load is just kind of so intense that they're so tired. It's because of all of these decisions. It's because of, you know, should I go into this shop? Okay, where's my hand sanitizer? Oh yeah, I need to be prepared when I go out. I need to have my face mask. I need to have my hand sanitizer. But in order to feel kind of pleasure, you have to feel safe. So the kind of the opportunity or the challenge for brands is to create, you know, these kind of safe spaces where people can feel safe and therefore have pleasure. So how can you kind of allow people to kind of feel that they can just like, oh, okay, I can let my guards down in here. And for that, you still need the safety measures to kind of have that moment of like release and pleasure.
So it's like kind of, you know, safety almost became during this pandemic a default setting that needs to be there, and that partially is obviously communicated by more of a sort of clinical tools like sanitizers and things like that, but also cleanliness. But
Yeah,
what else is now kind of
yeah.
helps us to understand that we are safe, whether that's physically from the virus or whether that's more kind of emotionally, so we can actually kind of, you know, pull back and just relax or
Yeah.
indulge or be more hedonistic in whatever, because let's face it, we've been missing that
Which
part.
we're missing it
I'm so
so
looking forward
much.
to my spa break. It's
Oh
like,
my God, yeah.
yeah.
But I think that's the thing, like, you know, it's kind of, you need to provide, brands need to provide safety, but not just safety. That's not enough. That's just the hygiene factor, right? Literally the hygiene factor. But, you know, that's not, you know, you need to also provide, you know, a stimulating experience or a relaxing experience. And, you know, I strongly believe that this is kind of, you need to have safety to give customers a break, but then actually kind of showing, I kind of, one of my big things is that safety is empathy. So kind of showing that you care is safety, because ultimately kind of an empathetic brand is going to put your health and safety first. They're going to kind of look after you. They're going to make sure that you are having a good experience. So sort of empathy through the brand and through the leaders of the brand is incredibly important. And I think Jacinda Ardern, New Zealand's Prime Minister, she sort of embodies empathy and she instills this kind of safety.
I saw this video of like 2 minutes something with her when she was saying what we did over the last 2 years, and I was like, my jaw dropped. But you're right. I'm like, the way she's expressing things is she's so human, so normal, and so intimate that you can't help but trust.
That's it. And I think, you know, lots of leaders in the West are not embodying that, which means that we don't trust and we don't feel safe. So, but yeah, no, that kind of empathy. So, you know, how can brands kind of code or show that they care, that they put people before profits. That sort of, incredibly important when it comes to allowing people to have safe experiences.
So if one of those kind of communication is that we care, does that therefore kind of connect with some of the information and news that we have been seeing around enhanced preference for sustainable and ethical brands? Do you think they kind of connect those two things?
I think so, and because I also think that kind of, sustainability is safe. Like, and that's, when we talked about preventative health, like we have seen during the pandemic how incredibly important the environment is for safety, or for health, or the future of our health. So I think as a brand who's already been focusing on sustainability has a lot more license to show that kind of they are working with a sort of networked safety. So they are, they're keeping our bodies healthy, they're keeping the planet healthy, and that kind of showing that holistic health consciousness is, that kind of makes people feel safe, because the brand has already shown that they care about the future of the planet. Yeah,
because you mentioned holistic, because I remember when we were talking earlier, you mentioned that kind of, it's really about this kind of networked idea of, of safety, that we sort of all kind of connected and no one should be left out in all that kind of, thinking and approaches. Could you sort of tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, so one thing is kind of, safety is networked. So, it's kind of, holistic safety for everyone and for everything. So if you have like a gluten-free shampoo, you're not going to sort of drink the shampoo, but the idea that there's kind of it's healthy for the planet, it's good for you, that's sort of showing that you've thought about all of the elements of your, or a vegan hand sanitizer, but it's kind of you're thinking about safety and health in a connected way, and you're thinking about the planet. But then I think there's also kind of another thing where kind of safety is equality. And I think the pandemic has kind of shown that you can't be safe without everybody being safe. And we've seen an incredibly kind of inequality in how the virus has hit vulnerable groups, Black and minority communities. And that sort of, and brands who are seen to not care about equality are also not going to feel like they're providing safety, because it needs to kind of be safety for everyone, because unless everybody's safe, we're not safe.
Yeah, but does that then accept the kind of very typical thinking about making sure that we don't catch the virus in the minority groups, or perhaps in older adults? Is that also kind of maybe extending to a wider kind of ethical treatment of everyone across not necessarily things related to physical health, but also everything else?
Yeah.
It's like, the virus shone the light on those kind of, disadvantages that some of those groups face. Equally, we had Black Lives Matter, that shone additionally the light on inequality. We also all heard about manufacturers in Asia being completely left out by brands, and all of that kind of started shining the light on, I think, slightly wider understanding of safety as a whole humanity.
Absolutely, and I think Black Lives Matters has shown that kind of the push for safety for everyone, and the police who are day keeping safe, and we can't basically we need to have safety for everyone in all sorts of ways. And I think also the meat packing industry in the US, and how they're taking away rights from workers and being called out on it. That's also kind of showing that unless you have to have safety for your workers, you can't talk about safety for your consumers and forget about your workers. And that's also kind of that networked holistic view of safety.
Yeah, because obviously we've seen all of us various news around brands kind of, staying obviously open and fulfilling e-commerce orders, but not really taking care of their packing teams, for example, their
Yeah.
warehouse staff, or I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, ASOS, that the people from the warehouse just left because there was no, security for them. So how are we seeing some of those things around kind of us ordering things online, getting delivery, and obviously that kind of exchange of a delivery that really hasn't been taken care of in terms of safety, except like, yeah, I'll just drop it in front of your doors and that's it. What kind of things that are we going to, you believe, seeing within the next few months or a year that might kind of change up a little bit of that interactions, that, that thinking from, from the treatment of the people that actually pack that, deliver that, to us actually as customers being, being kind of considered safe in some form or another by maybe, I don't know, changing packaging or something. What do you
Yeah.
if you see happening?
Yeah, and I think I guess like just to kind of touch on that point with the workers and the delivery people, the people who work in the warehouse, they need to be safe, right? Because there's no point in talking about safety for the consumer because we're all in this society together. So if we're going to control the virus, we need to think about a kind of a holistic safety, and brands need to show that they do that and be accountable around that. And I think safety is transparency today as well. But obviously kind of e-commerce, delivery, enormous opportunity for brands. So, what actually here is like a real way to kind of stand out. So in Selfridges, who's going to feel relaxed going to a huge department store at the moment? But what can Selfridges do in the delivery, the whole e-commerce journey, the delivery moment? Actually, kind of the local post delivery man here, he says like, "Hi, Michael," to my husband, because I order so many things. But like, how can you personalize the delivery moment? How can you the unboxing? We talked a lot about unboxing already, but now we really kind of get
unboxing. You say, how can you personalize? So does that intimacy therefore means
intimacy, human, like making you feel really special in that moment. I mean, even like Selfridges kind of really understanding how your time when it's good for you to have something delivered, in what way, in what type of packaging, like really sort of working the delivery and unboxing moment.
So it's kind of also giving us decisions on how we want things done, delivered, kind of getting us more of a control over that kind of process. Is that also making us feel safer?
I think so. Yeah, I think so, because it goes back to the empathy point as well.
Okay, cool. And then I was just wondering, when you were saying about kind of looking at all that kind of delivery where it's done, and do you think that we therefore going to start looking at a little bit more at the sort of whole product journey, from where things grow to make our t-shirts, to who's making them, to who's packing that, to who's delivering it, and everything else? And we're going to want to kind of control, or at least see that the brand is really kind of taking care of every step, or is that?
I think so. I mean, so on last Friday, we had like our team activity, summer team day out. And usually we always go to Brighton. So Crowdine, for 12 years, we've been going to Brighton every summer to like have, day out at the beach and just like hanging out. Couldn't do this year because it's not safe. And so we did like lots of activities. We were like doing, kind of scavenger hunt, everybody like apart, but kind of together. And then we ordered cocktails that were delivered through, I've already drank my cocktail. The cocktails that arrived, in a bag within a box, and there were 3 cocktails in the box. So we were able to keep the team safe, but still get kind of drinks out. there were alcohol-free options as well in a box. And it's mixed in Italy. I could have probably been mixed in the UK as well, but I think it was a beautiful box. It felt really special, but brands can do even more with this storytelling, and they can tell stories about how they're keeping their staff safe, but also how it's been packed safely, how it's clean and hygienic. And I think there's a lot more around the kind of the storytelling that brands, they can use this delivery moment to tell more stories about how they're keeping people safe.
Okay. And what about, because you mentioned earlier that it used to kind of be more that big brands were kind of safe, but kind of indicating that smaller, more local things seem to be kind of a little bit safer now during this lockdown, especially that obviously our local consumption has increased. And trust me, walking around Regent Street, you can clearly see that there isn't that many people out there. So
No.
how does that, you think, going to develop? And, and are there any things that some of those kind of smaller local businesses need to really be aware of to deliver safety, but still kind of keep that obviously amazing experience or hedonic pleasure of some kind?
Yeah, so this is actually really based on having done lots of research in the last few months and weeks. So, we talked to thousands of people around the world, and we particularly tap into our kin network, who are creators and connectors. They're often quite leading edge, and what they're telling us is that they believe that small brands are safer because they care about the community. And they also tell us that big brands they feel that big brands put profits over people, and that they're also not flexible enough to become safe quickly and adapt to the kind of the local need for safety in that moment. So the small kind of vegetable delivery service feels safe. The local brewery feels safer. The community shop where they've already been asking people to wear face masks for months feels safe, and the way that they kind of care and listen and are alert and adaptable to change means that at the moment our network are telling us that they trust that smaller brands are doing more to keep people safe. So then what can big brands do to show that they care and that they're taking the right safety measures at this time, and that they are indeed adaptable and flexible?
Mm-hmm. So that kind of, agility in a brands, which obviously bigger brands don't really kind of have ability more often than not, forget about tendency and your willingness, but that kind of agility that obviously was connected predominantly with startups, and especially the direct to consumer D2C ones, is something that seems to be kind of more understood now as a requirement for keeping this world kind of safe in a sense.
Absolutely, yeah. So being able to show that you can be agile, that you can be flexible, you can, even if it could be just, people aren't going to come to your shop, how can you make delivery quick and safe? So you don't have to actually go through that stressful moment of going to the shop.
Okay. And what about, you also mentioned one other thing in terms of consent that's related to safety recently. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes. So I think that post-pandemic, and this was something that started before as well, but post-pandemic safety is consent or consensual. So, and I think in many ways, kind of Gen Z, younger consumers, are leading the way here around, consent around how we use our bodies. It's kind of sexual consent, but also consent in terms of sharing information online and who shares what, where. And Gen Z have been kind of practicing, safe spaces and consensual sex. And now actually you can see that the there's a lot of consensual decision making around relationships when it comes to corona, or keeping yourself safe from the virus. So, you know, or just meeting up with friends, you know, how many people are going to be at the picnic, you know, actually, you know, hugging a relative or a friend requires another layer of consensual decision making. So actually younger generations in many ways can kind of help us lead the way in terms of, you know, how do we negotiate consents in this environment that is kind of, it's unsafe really. So how do we sort of work that through, and what role do brands play in kind of creating safe space or allowing, or, you know, talking about consent? Because in some ways, the, you know, brands also, you know, talking about using face masks or using face masks in shop has been about consent. It now will be enforced, but there's lots of behaviors that are around kind of, yeah, consent making.
Everything that we're talking about seems like, oh my goodness, there's so much thinking. There is nothing spontaneous, no serendipity. I'm like, what's going on with that? How can we take that back yet still feel safe and not having to think so much? I'm like, come on, we already have too much to think about.
Yeah, I think there is a sort of, you know, you talk a lot about this, Kate, a kind of need for stimulation. And I think we'll definitely see kind of design codes around maximalism, you know, colorful, you know, furniture, soft, cushiony, like, and I think the in-home experience, we will see a new in-home hedonism with entertainment systems, with, you know, with, yeah, just color and texture.
We indulge at home, but we stay kind of clinical outside. Oh no,
yeah.
I'm like that's not I don't want
that. I mean, that's kind of cocooning, isn't it? But I think also, you know, kind of hotels, shops, online environments really need to kind of focus. So if everything is becoming digital, then also all the digital experience need to be able to cater for all our needs around, you know, stimulation, pleasure, release, hedonism as well. So I don't think that everything is going to be clinical. There's only so much you can take. And I also think because of that, it's kind of important, you know, being hygienic can't just be like a kind of a hard plastic surface. You know, all of those kind of natural materials that have kind of cleanliness, natural properties, where, you know, natural woods or copper, any sort of materials, just kind of really focus on bringing in hygienic materials that aren't just sort of easy to wipe off or plastic.
So, like you said earlier, that a lot of kind of the changes that happened was us connecting more to nature, and obviously because we don't have any other spaces to spend time with loved ones or to kind of, you know, don't go insane, we went out into nature and we felt safe and good in there and everywhere else. So does that almost intensify that aspect of things like biophilic design and kind of moving the nature, you know, the outside inside and things like that? And, you know, obviously we have been investing crazy amounts into indoor plants, scenario, but there is enough stats on that as well. So are you kind of almost seeing that intensification of that kind of natural aspect and that kind of, you know, connection to nature and perhaps, you know, even mindfulness that comes with it, going into the spaces that then create safety outside of very clinical things like sanitizers?
I think absolutely. I think there's a really wonderful brand example, Touchline. It's a hand sanitizer, but it's and it's got, you know, it's got the right alcohol percentage on it. It's over 87% alcohol. Great. But it's also, you know, it's got a beautiful packaging. It's got different smells. So it smells of watermelon and God knows what. So it's kind of fun and stimulating in terms of its smell. But then it's also got kind of aloe vera and natural properties within it, and it's kind of coded very kind of neatly on their website, and the packaging also kind of combines the scientific with the natural and fun through the colors. And I think you will see a lot of this in kind of cleaning products and beauty products, where it's got the reassurance from the more kind of scientific and combined with the natural, where before we sometimes just saw the natural or just the kind of the clinical scientific, but it needs to come together.
It's almost like this kind of right threshold of things that, so we can kind of still enjoy our life and kind of, maybe perhaps even indulge or be slightly impulsive in the things. At the same time, kind of, almost have this default setting of safety as soon as we kind of, get, I don't know, enter a hotel or, or a store or open up a website or see a packaging or anything like that. So that's almost like ticked quickly, and then we can just focus on indulgence. Almost.
That's it. I think so. And I think another thing, and I keep on talking about sex all the time, but just have more sex. Durex condoms, they have this wonderful piece of advertising at the moment, which is showing a face mask that says safe outside and then a condom safe inside. And I think kind of, just have a bit of fun with it as well. Kind of, just be, it's a crazy situation in a crazy world. Let's just also kind of have a bit of a release and laugh.
That makes sense. Okay, that's enough of the questions from me. Who has any questions or comments or challenges that perhaps Matilda can solve? Just turn on your mic and ask. No questions? Wow, have we exhausted you guys?
No, I've got one.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
I thought it was really interesting. So I was out and about at the weekend. I was in our showroom on Friday. And so I've been watching kind of how the change in kind of consumer behavior and how it's kind of started from everyone being kind of, very scared to go into shops. And there's still plenty of people that are, to kind of, an opening out of kind of going, okay, this is okay. And, the streets are kind of filling up more as people kind of, release from that lockdown. And I think this weekend when I was out and about at different places, nobody was wearing masks. Nobody seems to be bothered. And a lot of when I've been talking to friends over the weekend as well, they're all wearing masks in shops ahead of, it coming into kind of force on Friday. And they're getting quite a lot of challenges from other people saying, why are you wearing that? You don't feel like you need to wear that, do you? Oh, no, it's all going to be okay. So it feels like we've got this kind of polarizing of people where there's some people that are kind of going, I want to wear a mask, I want to be safe, I want to kind of do everything kind of properly. And then you've got quite a lot of people on the other side as well who are kind of saying, oh, I don't believe in all this, it's all going to be fine, Boris isn't kind of, that interested in masks really. So we're finding it quite interesting, those kind of two kind of sets of people. And there's even people that come into our showroom and refuse to wear a mask and say, no, I don't want to wear a mask, I will just stay away from you. And of course they can't, and they'll get too close to you and they'll be talking. And it's really hard to kind of navigate that kind of polarized kind of attitude.
It's really hard. It feels like we've kind of borrowed a lot of those, the sort of the polarization from America, where it's become incredibly politicized around whether wearing mask or not. And I think, for me, the kind of, the mask embodies so many things where, and I've actually had my own journey with mask where I first felt like it was silencing, to wear a mask. It was kind of, I was being like physically kind of muscled. But now I feel like it codes care. And the kind of the emerging code is that it codes caring for others. Yeah. And I think we will see, there's backlash, there's kind of counter, but I think the overarching kind of trend is that face masks code kind of care and care for others.
I'd agree. That's exactly how I see it. I think it'll be interesting to kind of, see how that kind of infiltrates the mass and whether they accept it and stop looking at it as something that means that you're giving into the virus, which is crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I think it also kind of, one of my things that I didn't talk about is that kind of safety is bionic. So that kind of what are extensions of our own bodies will kind of be safety measures that we take. I don't know if you've seen like the safe key, which is like it's a key that you can open handles with, so you can kind of that's kind of light touch bionic. And the face mask, to a certain extent, also kind of becomes an extension of yourself and your body.
Thank you.
Very interesting. Great question, Ali. Great question. Anyone has any other questions? Any other comments? Anyone else? Okay, I guess we exhausted you, everyone. First of all, thank you so much all for signing up and for coming. Thank you so much to Matilda for really kind of sharing a lot of her insight and knowledge and things that they've been researching throughout this time in the lockdown. This is a first from our Human Discussions collection of talks, and we will be doing one every 2 weeks. And a lovely Ali that has been asking a question, one of our favorite clients and friends, she will be one of the people that agreed to share her knowledge and experience with us. But in the 2 weeks from now, on 4th of August, we will have Tracy Woodward. She's a executive board member at Cosmetics Executive Women and a very experienced CEO and leader in a lot of the beauty brands that we know, like Aromatherapy Associates. She used to work with Holland & Barrett and Marks & Spencer as well. And with her, we will be really discussing the sort of really bigger key changes that she believes that leaders of brands really kind of need to look at, from everything from people to manufacturing to how they do business, where they sell, how they treat everyone, to loads of different kind of angles of that. We will be posting the information on that tomorrow, and let us know if there are any other subjects that you would like to consider. But otherwise, thank you so much for that. Thank you again to Matilda for agreeing to be the first guinea pig on that. And I wish you all an amazing week. Hope that inspired you in some way to kind of change up, uptake, be more agile, or just a little bit more caring and careful. Keep sharing your information and knowledge with us, everyone. I'm so looking forward to seeing you all at the next one. So thank you so much, and lots of love, everyone. Take care for the rest of the week and the next few months. All the best. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.